Oh, hello, I didn't see you there. So this is the first part that we're gonna create a drum loop, a drum beat. And hopefully by the end of it you will know the basic of creating a beat in Ableton. If you want to use the same sample as me, you can find the link in the description to my website with a promo code, so you can download it completely free. With no further ado, let's jump into the Ableton. Okay, so let's make some trap drums. So to start with, I would recommend using a drum rack. Drag it out, remove the rest of the tracks. And the drum rack is a way to load your sample, your drum sample, one shot, and play them. If I make sure my keyboard is selected up here, so I can use it as a piano, and I press A, you can see it lights up here. If I press here, we move it, and we can see C3 is playing. So now I need to find a one-shot sample, for example a kick drum we can start with. I can go to my samples, or my own sample packs maybe, remove what we search for, and in here you can see my samples. If you use the right arrow on the keyboard, you open a folder. If you use the left arrow, you close it. So I can go down to my kicks, and we can preview them. If they doesn't preview, you probably not have this one selected. Then it doesn't preview, so make sure you select this one. So a trap drum, I would recommend using a short kick. So let's start with this one. We can pull up the volume since it's really low to around -6. If I now press A on my keyboard, we should hear it. What happens if the volume is too loud? You can see we start getting a red signal. That means it's clipping, and that makes disgusting artifacts in the sound. So make sure you have a volume that is lower than 0. So -6 is a good starting point. Then we maybe want a hat. So let's go to the hats, and a short hat is really nice. If you are on a sample and you press the right arrow, you can play the sample over and over again. And now we can put this short hat in the next spot. And C3 or C sharp is W on my keyboard, like a piano. And then we can use a hat or a snare, sorry, and can listen to them. So this snappy high sounded most like a trap snare, in my opinion. So now we have almost everything. Maybe we should add like an open hat as well. Something like this mid hat. And is there something else we can add? Let's start with this. So now we have our 4 samples. And let's make sure everything has volume of -6. And you press this pad to open that sample. Perfect. So to create a beat, we should make sure the tempo is right. And trap, it differs. You can choose your own tempo, of course, but a normal thing in trap is to have double tempo, which means we're playing the tempo double as fast as the feeling of the beat. That's because the hi-hats are playing so fast, so rapidly, that it's easier to have a double tempo when you're working. So let's take 150 to start with, and we can create a new MIDI track by double-clicking this pattern. We create a new pattern here by double-clicking. And you can see right away that we have 4 different, and they represent the samples we put into the drum rack. So we have the kick, the closed hat, the snare, and the open hat. If I want to add something, I just double-click, and we add a kick. We can change the length of this MIDI clip or this loop down here. So let's make it 4. 4 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. And since we're in double tempo, we like to put the kick on 1, the snare on 2, kick on 3, and snare on 4. Let's play it back by pressing this play button here on this pattern. So I was mistaken. Maybe this is a better tempo. So let's try that one instead. Okay, cool. And now we can add the hi-hat. And we put it in like this. And if you don't want to do this all the way, you can just take them, select them, hold this one and press Control on your keyboard while you're dragging. And release your mouse first. And then we copy it. And do this one more time. Let's listen to this. So it's really stiff. And that's a problem when you're working in a computer, that it's so on grid, so perfect, that it sounds robotic. So to fix that up, we can manually move around the notes. To change the timing of them. Or we can use something that's called groove in Ableton. And to use a groove, we can select everything and press here and we get the grooves. Maybe we can open hip hop, or I like to use the MPC. And maybe a swing at 55. We put it here and we listen. Compare it to none. You get a little more swing, which is really nice. But we should probably change the beat as well. So how do we do it? Well, we can zoom in by holding Control and zooming. Holding Control Shift to move around. And let's shorten our way to just 2 bars. So to add a hi-hat roll, for example, we could just add some more hi-hats here. Maybe one here. To make the snares pop a little better, we could try to add one here and add a kick drum here. So I didn't like this kick drum, so let's move it. Cool. We can also add like an open hat somewhere. And it felt like it would be better here maybe. Cool. So now what I would like to do is to maybe loop this part instead of this part that we used here. So let's remove this by marking it and press delete. And if we have this loop selected here, we can press duplicate loop and it will duplicate the same thing. On this part though, we maybe want to change up the things. So I try to make a roll here maybe, and no one here, maybe one here. I change the snare to a different place and the open hat to a different place. And maybe put in some extra kicks in here. And let's listen. So that didn't sound good, so let's try something else. Cool. So that's good enough for now. That's a way to program your drums, get a groove, and, you know, just build it how you want. You can also change the velocity. I forgot to tell you. down here, you have something called velocity. And velocity is how hard the notes are hit. For example, if I want to change this hi-hats, I can drag them down. And you can hear the volume of the sound is changing. So what you could do is to control all your hi-hats, put them down, and then put some of them down a little more than others, or a little higher in the roll, for example. You can see it's going from down, up, 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 here, boom. And maybe a hi-hat roll that is going downwards and upwards and upwards again and downwards. So you can hear they get a little more life, and that's a good way to make your drums more human if you're trying that. So that's one way of creating a beat.